And so it's my understanding that tonight, between now and midnight, at some point, you guys are going to be taking a vote on the big beautiful bill. Is that correct? And what would happen if that is voted on, kind of the timeline of that, when we would hear
Yeah.
potentially an outcome?
So what we're waiting for right now is a preliminary sort of test vote. It's called a rule vote, which would then set up debate and a final vote on the one big beautiful bill. That's been getting held open for a while now, and while some of those folks are getting into town, as I said, we were missing a few folks. There's a few others that are being discussed with the president and some other people are from leadership are discussing their vote with them. But I anticipate that we will be taking up the Senate version of this bill with no legislative changes to it. It'll be the Senate version of what the House originally sent over. And there's some things I would prefer that were in the House version of this. But at the end of the day, moving forward so that we have some common sense tax policy and energy policy and start gaining some of the savings that we need to have for the country, I think this is the right step in the direction.
So yeah, just kind of getting to the point where you could move it forward. No more amendments, no more kind of
Correct.
additions. Okay.
If there
And
were if there were amendments, it would have to go back to the Senate, and there would be something called the conference committee, and that takes time to organize and to bring together. And at this point, not reckless speed, but speed is a part of this, and having the pressure of making sure that we get a product out, a good product out in timely fashion, is, I think, appropriate.
not fighting over the nitty-gritty parts and everything. And
Well, we've been fighting over the nitty gritty details for a long time. That was one of the reasons why the House was took a while to pass it. We were able to pass it by Memorial Day. Certainly, the Senate then took a month plus as they've been battling it out about some of their details. And we've got a good product here that delivers on the promises made by the House and Senate Republicans as well as the president. And there's always things that we're going to need to go back and address. But again, having common sense tax policy, common sense energy policy is really going to set us up for success and economic success moving forward.
yeah, and when is the soonest, I guess, this could be passed, officially in place?
Yeah. Well, once it passes the House, it would then get what's called enrolled. They have to literally go through and print things and make sure everything's in order, and then it gets sent over to the president's desk, and then he would sign that. That's typically it takes a magnitude of hours, maybe a couple of days. Sometimes once something passes, that it is able to be signed into law. But it could hit the July 4 deadline. I know that's been the president's wish, but we're going to have to probably see a passage of that tonight or early tomorrow morning, late into tonight, into tomorrow morning for that to happen.
Okay. And will you guys be on
Mhm.
the House floor up until there's that vote?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously in my office right now, but we've been on the floor, spent a number of hours on the floor, kind of waiting to get moving on that. That the process is we have to be on the House floor to do our voting, and so it doesn't matter whether it's 7 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock in the morning, or somewhere in between. We physically have to be there.
Wow, okay. And what's the atmosphere like on the floor for you and in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. We all struggled to get here. I had to drive myself last night from Holland to Detroit because we had some flight issues, and I took an early stayed overnight in Detroit and took an early flight out of Detroit into Washington. I mean, I think there was 800 plus flight delays around the country. So we've had people struggling to get in. They've been driving in from 10, 12 hours away. One of my colleagues was driving in from Illinois. And so people have been coming from around the country trying to get here. And then we get here, and There's some waiting around, waiting for some of those final negotiations and arm twisting to happen. The president's been leaning in. This is his legacy, but it's also promises that we in the House made as well, and it's time to fulfill those.
Yeah, I guess waiting isn't that unusual considering how much has gone into this, but the
Correct.
final waiting is kind of the hardest to just kind of wait and see what happens. But
Yeah.
tell me in our
Often,
final,
so sorry, but oftentimes, people don't understand how long we've been working on some things. This has been getting led up for more than a year, frankly. We've been having meetings knowing that this event was going to be happening even before the election, and then certainly after the election, kind of kicking it into overgear. To say, okay, this is going to be one of the priorities. In fact, there's a reason why it is HR1. It's the number one bill priority in the House of Representatives, and that this is what needs to pass. And so, some people might say, where'd this all come from? We've been working on this for, in some cases, years on some of these issues.
right, it's all a compilation. And now, it's been notoriously talked about how it's so big that a lot of people haven't read it. I'm assuming you've done your due diligence and read through it. Tell me about the virtues. Tell me about what it is that you've read inside of the One Big Beautiful Bill that really stand out to you as the key components that you're looking forward to potentially and hopefully passing in your side.
Yeah, and what we do is we sort of flag some certain areas of interest. It might be the committee, it might be how it pertains to Michigan, for example. Energy and energy policy has been a huge part of this. The Palisades nuclear plant coming back online. We've been looking very closely and working with Secretary Wright, Secretary of Energy, both in this administration and, frankly, Secretary Granholm in the past administration on these issues. And so what we've done is we've gone in and really paid attention to certain areas that are very relevant to Michigan or certain things within the district. You know, Beyond that, we have some bigger issues. Our energy policy, for example, and Palisades fits into that. But what is our energy policy as a nation, as it really has this need for energy that's competitive price, excuse me, competitively priced energy, so that allows us to operate on the world stage and be competitive there. Certainly, a huge component of this is the tax policy. If we do not pass this bill and we let the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provisions expire, 40 million families are going to see their per child tax credit cut in half. We're going to see a huge number of families be affected when their standard deduction is cut in half. We're going to see that income levels at $30,000 to $80,000, they're going to see a massive tax increase. That can't happen. It should not happen, and it's a very avoidable problem if we can just get together and pass this bill. So we're going to keep banging away at that. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get any Democrat votes to come along. So this is going to be purely a partisan issue, but we think it's the right thing for the country.
Yeah, and just really quick, do you have anything as far as like the potential cuts to Medicaid? Would that I'm thinking about potentially doing a story on like the senior care facilities that rely on that. Do you have any kind of comment on like would that have an effect or if that's been
Yeah.
a discussion?
I think certainly it's something that we have looked at. I've looked at rural health has been a big issue that has been discussed. The Senate did put in a $50 billion fund to deal with the rural health care side of things. It's going to be $10 billion a year for 5 years. I do believe that a lot of the effects are going to be overstated and are being overstated. And here's what I'm confused about. Why would my Democrat colleagues defend people who are here undocumented, without proper documentation, and are here illegally? Why should they be tapping into the system when our own citizens can't do it at that same level? Why is it permissible and allowable and okay to have 2 million people drawing down Medicaid benefits in multiple states? That's called fraud. That's called fraud, and that's the kind of thing that we're trying to squeeze out of this system. And then you get to people that are able-bodied, meaning they can work. They don't have a physical or a mental disability. They don't have either elderly dependents or young dependents, but they are choosing to not work. They're choosing to not go get an education. They're choosing to not volunteer in their community. Well, this bill says if you want those benefits, you have to do 80 hours of volunteering or education or work every month. That's 20 hours a week. And by the way, that's good for them. It's good for them. It's good for society. It's good for taxpayers. And ultimately, I think it'll be a positive.
I did